Good morning, everybody. As we go into the chitas of the day, today is Monday, the second reading of the book of Shemos, this book of Exodus, in the first portion, the portion of Shemos. We're holding chapter 1, verse 18. Vayikra Melech Mitzrayim l'Milyada. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives, because they were not seemingly were not putting, as the Torah says before, they were not putting the boys to death. Why are you not following the rules? And you're enabling the boys to live. So the midwives told the Pharaoh, the women, the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptians. They're skilled midwives themselves. Before we come to them, before we get to them to help them out, they are having children on their own. So Rashi says, as skillful as midwives. So that, and the Targum renders it chayosa miyaladis. Rabbis, however, interpret it to mean that they are the Israelite women are compared to chayos, beasts of the field, which do not require midwives. Now they are compared to beasts, a cub and a growing lion. We see that the Torah compares. Yaakov Avinu compared his children to a lion, to a wolf. He will pray. He's a firstborn bull. Joseph, he's like a swift gazelle. Naphtali. So therefore, we see that the Jewish people are compared to as animals in a positive way. Verse 20. And God benefited the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very, very strong. So Rashi asks, what is the good thing that God gave to these two beautiful women, Yocheved and Miriam? What did he give to them? Verse 21. Now it took place when the midwives feared God that he made houses for them. So Rashi said this is the meaning of this verse is the reward that God gave to Yocheved and to Miriam. The houses of priesthood and the Levitic family and the royal family, which are called houses, as it's written, he built them the house of the Lord and the house of kings. The priesthood and the Levitic family from Yocheved, and the royal family from Miriam, as it stated in Masechta Sotah, that ultimately kingship came from the family of Miriam. Verse 22. And Pari commanded his nation, saying, because he couldn't trust the midwives, so he turned to the people and he told them, Kol haben hayira tashlichu. He told them, every son who is born, throw him into the Nile. And every girl, let him live. So Rashi says, he issued the decree upon them as well, not only upon the Jews. Why? On the day Moses was born, his astrologers told him, today the one who will save them has been born. But we cannot see from which will ultimately, we cannot see, but we see that he will ultimately be smitten through water. And he's going to die, he's going to be punished through water. So therefore, on that day, he issued a decree upon all Egypt and said, every son who's born on this day, that was the 7th of Adar in that time, it should be put to death. It does not, and he should be thrown into the Nile. It does not say he was born to the Hebrews. They did not know, however, that Moses would have ultimately suffered because of water, as the story with hitting the rock. that he would not be permitted to the Holy Land, but not that he would die in water, God forbid. So they said everybody should be thrown into the water. Chapter 2, verse number 1. Vayelech ish beis Levi, vayikach es bas Levi. A man of the tribe of Levi went out, and he married the daughter of Levi. So Rashi says, what happened suddenly? This is Yecheved's husband, Amram, married. What do you mean, man? They had already 2 children, Aaron and Miriam. So Rashi says because he separated from her, because of Pharaoh's decree. He separated from his wife, and he married her. This is the meaning. He went and he followed. He went after his daughter's advice. Miriam told him, and she said to him, your decree is harsher than Pharaoh's decree. Where Pharaoh decreed only against the males. You have issued a decree because he was the leader of the Jewish nation, Amram. And when he divorced his wife not to have any more children, other people followed him. So he said, your decree is against the males and the females as well. So when he listened to his daughter, he took her back and he married her a second time. He got married to Yocheved. She was too transformed to become a younger woman because she was actually 130 years old at that time. For she was born when they came to Egypt in the Chaimes, when Jacob came down to Egypt with his family. Yocheved was born as they came into the land of Egypt, and they were there. The total amount of years was 210 years. When they left, Moses was 80 years old when they left. We know that Moses was 80 years old when they left. So if Moses was 80 years old, and they're there 210 years, if so, when she conceived him, she was 130 years old. So Yocheved was 130 years old. So this was a miracle. A miraculous baby was born through her at 130 years old. And that's why Rashi says, not only did he take her back, but she actually became young again, so to say, that she could be able to have a child. Verse number 2. Vatara Isha, and this woman conceived Vatelet Ben, and she had a son. Vatira Isikitoiv, and she saw that he was good. So she hid him for 3 months. Rashi says Kitoivu. What did she see that he was good? When he was born, the entire house was filled with light. Moshe Rabbeinu shone like the sun, the Gemara says. And she had to hide him. Verse number 3. She couldn't hide him any longer. So she took a reed basket. And she smeared it inside and the outside with clay and pitch. She put the child in it. And she put it in the marsh of at the Nile edge. So Rashi says, why couldn't she hide him any longer? Because the Egyptian counted her pregnancy for the day that Amram took her back. She bore him after only 6 months, and one day he was born in the 7th month. For a woman who gives birth to a 7th-month child may give birth after incomplete months. And they searched after her after 9. So they thought she was going to have it in 9 months, but she had it in 6 months and 1 day. So that's why after 3 months, they came after her. They kept an eye on her. And they wanted to find out if she had the baby. So after 3 months, because now after 9 months, she had to do something about it. So Gemi is Lashon Mishnah Blaz. It's a reed grass. This is a palatable substance which understands both soft things and hard things. And she, with clay and pitch on the outside and clay on the inside, so that the righteous person, Moses, should not smell the odor of the pitch. This expression of marsh means the meaning of marsh. Marsh is an old French reed, similar to reeds that rush. Shalkorov is brought down in the verse. Okay, verse number 4. And his sister Miriam stood from afar. Ladea Mayasa Lord, to see what we've done to him. Imagine they put her at the edge of this little baby in a little basket. Miriam wanted to see what would be with this child. Verse number 5. Tated Baspare, dust that day, Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe. Alayar, she went down to bathe in the Nile. And her maids were walking with her. And she saw the basket in the midst of the marsh. And she sent out her maid, and she took it. So Rashi says, transport the verse and explain it. Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe in it. Some people say she went down to convert, to do the mikveh, to dip herself in the mikveh and to become a Jew. Along the Nile, next to the Nile, similar to see Jacob field is near me. It's little translation for a hand because a person's hands is near himself. Our sages say, Alicha is an expression of death, similar to behold, I'm going to die. They, her maids, were going to die because they protested against her when she wanted to take the basket. The text supports them, the sages, because otherwise, why is it necessary to write, and her maids were walking? So the aliyah, she said, take the basket. And they said, leave the basket. Do not touch this basket. It's a Jewish child. But she went against their wishes and she commanded Amasa, her maidservant. But our sages say, however, interpret an expression of meaning her hand. The joints from her elbows to help her tip the middle finger is known as Amma. Hence the cubit measure bearing a name Amma, which is the length of the arm from elbow to finger, following the rules of Hebrew grammar. However, it should be seen as vowelized as Amosa, which is a dogish on the mem. They, however, interpret Amosa to mean that her hand, that she stretched out her hand. Her arm grew many cubits so she could reach the basket. She herself reached out to the basket and God made a miracle. Her hand stretched out to grab the basket. Verse number 6. Tiftach, she opened this basket. And she saw this child. And the child was crying. She had compassion on the child. She said, this one is a child of the Jews. So Rashi says, whom did she see? The child. So she saw the Shechina with him. Even though he was a little baby, 3-month-old baby, he sounded like a lad. Sounded like the cry was a cry of an adult. So the sister came running out. The sister came out and she told the daughter of Pari, I'll run and find you a Hebrew woman to nurse her. And she will nurse the child for you. So this teaches us that she was taking him around to many Egyptian women to nurse. He saw the baby crying. So she wanted to nurse him. She wanted others to nurse him. But he did not nurse. He would not nurse from an Egyptian woman because he was destined to speak to God. How would he nurse from an Egyptian woman? So therefore she told the Pharaoh's daughter, she said to her, let me find you a Jewish woman that will nurse her. So the Pharaoh's daughter told her, Lechi, go. So Miriam went and called Yocheved, which is the mother of this child. So Rashi says she went with alacrity and vigor like a youth. Verse 9. So the Pharaoh's daughter said to Yocheved, take this child, and nurse him for me, and I'll pay you for it. And she took the child and she became his nurse. So here Rashi says she prophesies. She prophesied but did not know what she prophesies. She said, this is yours, this is your child. Verse number 10. And this young boy grew up. When he lived with his mother, she was she under protection of the daughter of the princess of Pharaoh. But ultimately, the young boy grew up. But she brought him to the house of Pharaoh, to the house of the daughter of Pharaoh. Ben, this young boy became a son to the Pharaoh, to the daughter of Pharaoh. And she called him Moshe. And she gave him that name. She said, because I drew him from the water. So now she says, Mishisihu. The word Mishisihu, which is an Aramaic expression of drawing out, similar to expression, one who draws hair from out of milk. And in Hebrew, Mishisihu is an expression meaning I removed, like shall not remove away, did not move away. Menachem classifies as a way the root of mosh, which he says, however, that Mishisiu does not belong to the classification of mosh, layomush, but is derived from the root of Moshe, which means taking out, and similarly, he drew me out of many waters. So this is all grammar. Why she gave him? Because all arguing, the question is why she called him Moshe. If she called him Mishisihu, he should have called him Moshe. Why did she call him Moshe? Those who answer, because Moshe means, she said, you're going to draw others. I saved you to save others. And that's what she called him Moshe. Moshe means to take others out. If she would name the name Mishisihu, she would have called him Moshri. But she called him Moshe because he would save others. This ends the Chumash of today. The first time we're introduced to Moshe Rabbeinu, and we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was called Moshe throughout the entire Torah, even though he had other names. Some say he was called Tuvia, Kitov. Actually, Yocheved called him Tuvia, but he was honored with the name Moshe Rabbeinu because this beautiful girl saved her. Batya saved him. And because of that, the Torah honors with giving her the name Moshe throughout the entire Torah. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We are holding still in the concept in the chapter 13 in Tanya, and here we go. He named me this avazu hamurim b'beinim. Now this affirmation mentioned above, this concept of love, which is mentioned by a middleman b'shas hatfilah, in the time of prayer. We mentioned that a middleman, a beinoni, when he goes to daven, he goes to pray, his prayer has the effect that he has the capability to overpower then his animalistic soul, to not give him a knockout, to put him to sleep. All day, his gabrus hanefesh is through the power, the strengthening of his godly soul, etc., over his animal soul. So you might think he's a tzaddik. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, no. In comparison to a righteous man, to a righteous man, this service is nothing. This service to a perfect righteous man, this is not called the true service of God. He has a whole different service. Why? Because the truth is, this love goes away the second he finishes davening. So that shows you that it's not a true love. It is a true love to him, but to a tzaddik, this is not a true ava, because a true ava to a tzaddik never ceases. Kiddusiv, Svas Emes Tikkun Lahad. As it says, the language of the lips of truth shall be established forever. But the tongue of falsehood is only momentarily. So truth lasts forever. That's why to a tzaddik, he's a truthful person. And by him, the Ava is 24/7. To a Beni, the Ava can be while he's davening, while he's learning. It's not 24/7. So you might feel you're faking. Being a Beinoni, the Alter Rebbe, that's the Alter Rebbe saying, but being a Beinoni is a faker. The Alter Rebbe says no. The Beinoni doesn't make a difference. Nevertheless, in relation to the rank of a Beinoni, this Nikas Avodah Tam, this is a perfect service. In their level of truth. Therefore, truth, the concept of truth is everybody has their level of truth. You can't have a one one brush situation. Everybody has their concept. So to a Beinoni, to his other thing is everything is relative, as they say. To a Beinoni, this is his truth. Each man is relative to his standing in the category of a Beinoni. Therefore, I'm calling their Ava in there when they pray. I'm saying that they also, to them, it's Sfas Emes Tikala. To them, to a Beinoni, it's the language of truth. Maybe to a tzaddik, it's not the language of truth, but to a Beinoni, it is the language of truth. Why? Since their divine soul has the power to awaken this love constantly, they always can go back to daven. They always can run to learn. To a Beinoni, he always has a place to run. That's really, it's important. We always should have a place to run. That when we fall, when we see ourselves that we are starting to wander in a situation that's going to take us away from love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we should run away. We should run and connect ourselves to something holy. That's we mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, that the Alter Rebbe says we need God's help. We should always run to God's help. So since the Beinoni can awaken up this love again, to strengthen himself in a time of prayer every single day. By the means of spiritual preparation, therefore a Beinoni needs to have spiritual preparation. He can't just run to daven. He needs to prepare himself, appropriate each soul to their rank. So that's why the higher level of a soul, the less preparation is required to awaken the love of God. Regardless, every soul has the capacity to arouse its love of God during prayer. Everybody can do that. The attribute of Jacob is the attribute of truth. As it says, you give truth to Jacob, who is called the middle bolt, which secures everything from end to end. This is an expression of the rod that went through the middle of the tabernacle, called the Briach Hatichon. There was a rod, one long rod that went from the whole, surrounded the whole tabernacle and kept it as one. So even though there were many hooks and many connections and ties that held the walls of the tabernacle, there was one rod that was called Briach Hatichon that went in the middle. We're going to get to that portion soon, Parshas Truma. And there was this rod that went from one side of the tabernacle and surrounded in the middle, through the boards, and held everything together. That's called the middle rod. Now, the middle rod is what held the whole building together. It's an expression of Abraham is to the right, Yitzchak is to the left, and Yaakov is in the middle. And that's Midasish, the middle is what holds the two together. So Abraham is Chesed, and Isaac is Gvura, and Yaakov is the glue, is midas hatiferes, midas emes, the middle rod. So Yaakov is the one that kept everything together. From the highest to the lowest. In the graduation of every level, it passes through the central point and that particular level. Which is the point in the quality of the truth that's in that level. So the midas of Yaakov, meaning Yaakov goes through everything. It's not something that only stays in one place. Oh, that's where emes is. Emes is only in this place, not in that place. No, emes is something, truth is something that goes from the beginning, from A to Z. That's emes. So emes is not something that only can be by a tzaddik. No, there can be emes in all levels, because emes can handle a tzaddik and can handle a beinoni, and emes can handle even a rasha. Emes can handle all aspects of life, because truth is something that goes through all. As I say, the etrog is, we take an etrog is because the etrog survives all what do you call seasons. Doesn't only grow in a certain season. Etrog grows through all seasons. That's the truth. Truth can go through all situations, and the truth will never go away. If the truth goes away in a different season, a different story, that's not the truth. So truth will always be there. And that's why we always have the capability. That's why the Beinoni has the truth. Alter Rebbe wants to emphasize that the Beinoni, and even the Rasha, shouldn't think that he's lost the truth. He might be away from the truth. He might hide from the truth. He might cover the truth. But the truth is still there. The emes is always there, because emes goes through everything. That's the beauty of Yaakov. That's why Yaakov Avinu can handle 12 tribes and keep them all together. Avraham Avinu couldn't handle. He had Yitzchak and 6 and 7 other children. Yitzchak had an Esav. Couldn't bring them together. Yaakov, Midas Shel Emes, knew how to give every child their blessing. He knew exactly how to bring his children together. He knew how exactly, because he gave the emes to each and every child. That's the beauty of emes, the beauty of truth. Umidas emes hinachos bi mitzorim. The attribute of truth is unbounded, inherent. It has no upper limits, as extends to the highest level. And all the lower gradation levels are nothing compared to the spirit to them. So if then truth is found in all levels, despite this disparity, we must conclude that the strand of truth on each level is relative to the core of that level. That's an important concept over here. It's in support of, so you understand. So therefore, the truth of a Beinoni is not the truth of a tzaddik. Tzaddik has his truth, and the Beinoni has his truth. They're both the same truth. But the question is, what's the level of it? So let's say, like we have to. I'll give you an analogy. The Torah says you shall learn by day and by night. Really, Torah should be learned by day and night. And then the Torah says 6 days a week you shall work. So what is the meaning? If I go to work, I cannot learn. So the answer is, you have to learn, each person according to his capability. A yeshiva student needs to learn for 14 hours a day. And if he learns 13 hours, he's not doing his obligation. A person that works maybe needs to learn 2 hours a day. Maybe he's only have to learn a half an hour a day. So to him, his half an hour a day is like a student that's learning 14 hours a day. Because one is a truth to the student, and one is a truth to the worker. The worker's half an hour is like the student's 14 hours. And if the worker that could learn a half an hour a day learns only that day 20 minutes, is like the student who's supposed to learn 14 hours and he learns 13 hours. Both of them have played with their time and their obligation. And that's the concept of emes. Everything is relative to that person. So my avas Hashem, I cannot say, oh, but I don't have love of God like a tzaddik. I'm not supposed to have love of God like a tzaddik. His love of God has to be on his level, and my love of God has to be to my capacity, my capability. And that's the way the Eibush should be. That's the beauty. The Alter Rebbe says the concept of emes. Emes has all levels. As it's known to those students of Kabbalah, the quality of the head and intellect, the highest level within the lower grades, is inferior to the soul and the feet, the very lowest level within the highest grades. As our sages say, the feet of the Chayot surpass all those lowest levels than them, including the highest degree within the lowest level. What does that mean? The attribute of truth then is measured according to the standard of each level. We may thus conclude that divine service of a Beini is considered true service. It's considered a true service relative to their level. Although when compared to a tzaddik, it's not considered true since it passes after prayer. That's true also. But he's not supposed to be a tzaddik. A Beini is supposed to be a Beinoni. That's what he's supposed to be. His obligation in life is not to be a tzaddik, not to be this righteous individual, but to be a middleman. And since he's supposed to be a middleman, he's got to do the best to be a middleman and not somebody else. Say the famous story of Rabbi Zusha, when he was becoming old and he felt he was gonna die, he cried, and they asked him, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Because when I come to heaven, they're not gonna ask me why wasn't I Avram Avinu. They're not gonna ask me why wasn't I Moshe Rabbeinu. They're gonna ask me why wasn't I Zusha. Why wasn't I Zusha? The Eibishter wants me to be Zusha. So too, God doesn't want you to be somebody else. God wants you to be who you are. Be the best that you can be. Don't be somebody else. And if I am the best that I can be, then that is my truth. So I need to look at the mirror and I need to look at myself, not look at somebody else, and say, did I do the best today? I'm not going to be somebody else. I cannot be somebody else. Did I do my best? And that is my truth. And don't lie. And that's one of the things that the Alter Rebbe demands in Tanya, that a person should be truthful. And truthful is not, oh, but I cannot be somebody else. Truthful is, can I be who I am? And if I am my best, then if that's a truth, because the only one who knows the truth is you, me, and God. And I cannot lie to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I can lie to everybody. As the Gemara says, there's two people a man cannot lie to God and to his wife. So if your wife tells you, hello, you're not a tzaddik, you know you're not a tzaddik. So that is the avodah, that's the avodah of a Beinoni. So the Alter Rebbe says that the emes of a Beinoni is the emes, is his truth. And if he has that moment of avas Hashem, love of God, in davening, and even though 20 minutes later it disappears, still he accomplished his emes of that day, his truth of that day. And that ends the Tanya of the day. The day is the 20th day of the month of Teves, and the Tillim of the day is 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103. So 97 to 103, and you will have done the Tchitas of the day. And we should all have a wonderful, beautiful, happy, healthy day. Tonight in Mir Shem at 7 p.m., we're having a beautiful, wonderful lecture. Great inspirational speaker that's going to speak to us in Mir Shem tonight, a young lady, a shlucha from Bozeman, Iowa, I believe. Her name is Chavi Brook. Inspiration, infertility, adoption, faith, love, community tonight at 7 p.m. at this Zoom number. Have a wonderful, beautiful, happy day. Today is also the yahrzeit of the Rambam Maimonides, who's buried in Tveria. He should be a Melech Seisha for all of us. He was a doctor, famous doctor. Also, he should ask God to heal everybody, and we should only be healthy and well. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, beautiful day.
You too, Rabbi. Thank you.